Hi, I'm the Math Guy Steve. Let's try solving this equation. So I saw this equation recently on a podcast, and someone said this is a very unnatural equation. I beg to differ. This equation is a type of equation that pops up pretty often in mathematics. And so one way to solve this equation is by using factoring to solve it. Okay, so in using factoring, usually we try to get 0 on one side, then factor the other side, set each factor equal to 0, and solve from there. Okay, and again, this is checkable. All right, so how do we get 0 on one side? Well, first, we don't want to get rid of x's, and so getting 0 on one side, we would subtract 2x from both sides. Okay, so subtracting 2x from both sides, we get x cubed minus 2x equals 0. Okay, so we get 0 on one side. Next up, factor the other side. Now, when factoring, we always first see if they have anything in common, if the terms have anything in common that I can pull off of each or factor out. So factoring out the GCF, the greatest common factor. Here, they both have an x in common. Both of these terms have an x, so let's pull an x out of each. By taking x out of each, what's left? X squared minus 2. Okay, so get 0 on one side, factor the other side. Now we can set each factor equal to 0. Okay, so in other words, let x equal 0. Got it, okay. And then x squared minus 2 equals 0. And solve each of these equations separately. Okay, so here we have x equals 0. That's one of our solutions. Okay. Not too bad, all right. And then here we would add 2 to both sides. Okay, so adding 2 to both sides, we get x squared equals 2. Got it. And then taking the square root. Now, anytime you take your square root, we put our own square root into the equation, don't forget the plus or minus. Okay, this has to do with inverse functions and how square and square roots are not quite all the way inverses. And so don't forget that plus or minus. All right. And so we end up with x equals plus or minus. So x is plus or minus the square root of 2. And so these are the three solutions to this equation. That is x equals 0, x equals positive root 2, and x equals negative root 2. Now, this is checkable. We can check it. We call it the Nike step, okay? The check step, okay? All right, and how we check it is by plugging it back into our original equation and making sure we get a true statement. So we'll check each of these. We'll plug in each of these solutions and see if we get a true statement. Okay, so here's our Nike step, our check step. Okay, got it. If I plug in 0, let's plug in 0. If x equals 0, then 0 cubed, is that the same as 2 times 0? Plug it in for every x. And yeah, this is true. Yeah. 0 cubed is 0, and then 2 times 0 is 0. So that checks. Nice. All right, okay. All right, if I plug in square root of 2, let's see. So the square root of 2, when I cube it, is that the same as 2 times the square root of 2? And the way we show that these two are indeed the same is by understanding what it means to cube something, right? What it means to cube it means it multiplied by itself 3 times, okay? And so in doing that, one way to represent that is by noting that a square root is also called a half power, okay? So this is 2 to the half cubed. Well, 2 to the half cubed, all right. Is that the same as, then I always do the same thing on this side. This is 2 to the 1 times 2 to the half. And so now we have to deal with our rules of exponents. Right here, if I'm raising a power to a power, you multiply those powers. So 1/2 times 3, that's 2 to the 3 halves. Is that the same as, well, if I'm multiplying two exponents that have the same base, I add the powers. And so this is 2 to the 1 plus 1/2 is indeed 3 halves. So this one checks as well. Okay. And if I do the same thing with negative root 2, I get the exact same result. Negative root 2 to the third. Is that the same as 2 times negative root 2? Yeah, we get a similar result. We get, this is negative 2 to the 3 halves is the same as negative 2 to the 3 halves. Okay, so that one checks as well. So all three of these will be the solutions to this equation. And so when solving by factoring, it's not too bad. Just get 0 on one side, factor the other side, set each factor equal to 0, and then solve those new equations separately. And again, don't forget that Nike step, that check step, okay? All right? And always remember, math is everywhere.